To sustainably heal triggers so that they won't come back, you should not focus on the trigger. Yes, that's right. The trigger is not the actual problem, but only the symptom of the problem. Let me show you. So, let's say on this line we have emotional intensity. How intense are the emotions that you are feeling? And then this red line up here is the maximum of what you can handle. After that, the emotions are too much for you and you cannot properly handle it anymore. It becomes overwhelming. So most triggers, let's say your problem is that you are anxious when you need to speak publicly. This usually goes back to deeper childhood wounds. When in your childhood you maybe spoke up in class and everybody laughed. Or let's say you always find yourself in toxic relationships because you want to please people, chase for love and approval. This usually goes back to childhood, where your subconscious felt like you are not good enough and you need to be better for one or both of your parents and chase for their love and approval. How that looks like is you go through your life, this is in childhood, and the emotions are up and down, they are more or less, and then at one point you are in a situation that is emotionally overwhelming for you. It's above this red line of the maximum what you can handle. And in childhood, this can be many things. What functionally happens is that your subconscious seals this inside of a box, so to speak. And by the way, I apologize, but the ground I'm standing on here is quite noisy, so we just have to deal with that. So, when the emotions become too much for you to handle, your subconscious seals that inside of a box. It seals that together with all the emotional pain. This gets stored in your subconscious and never resolves unless you resolve the trigger at its root, and often together with a safety lesson. So the safety lesson might be, I need to be quiet in front of others, I should not speak up in front of a large crowd, or I experience emotional pain. Right? When you speak up in school and everybody laughs, then this gets ingrained if it's at this moment emotionally overwhelming for you. If you are with your parents, the safety lesson might be, I need to chase for love and approval from them, or I might get abandoned. Especially this roots very, very deeply, because this fear of abandonment, when you're a small child, can be very closely linked with a fear of death, because you cannot survive on your own. So you start chasing for love and approval. And what happens is that throughout your life, you encounter many, many similar situations. Maybe you speak up in front of your class again, in front of family, and this trigger just stays and it builds on top of each other. Or you chase for love and approval from your friends, from your colleagues, and then later from your romantic partners. And this just always builds on top of each other. What now happens is that you get triggered in a situation, and the situation is this. So you, let's say, have a presentation at work, you should speak in front of everyone, you stand up and you feel this anxious feeling. Breathing gets hard, you get nervous, maybe you start sweating. This is the trigger. Or you find yourself in a toxic relationship and your partner withdraws love from you and you feel like, oh God, maybe I'm not good enough, I need to chase for love and approval. That's the trigger here. And I hope now you see, while it will not necessarily help you to focus on this trigger, yes, you need to deal with it because it's an issue in the moment, but only focusing on this trigger will not help you to sustainably let it go and heal. Because to sustainably let it go and heal, you need to get to the root cause here. We call that an ISE. It's an initial sensitizing event. This is where your trauma, where the trigger started. And if you don't work on it, it stays in your subconscious and just keeps building up on top of each other throughout your entire life. So, what can you do now to get here and heal that? Well, the issue is that this is in your subconscious. Let me take this pen again. This is in your subconscious. And your subconscious doesn't communicate logically. What many people do is they maybe go to therapy, or they talk about the issues, they talk about their childhood, what they experienced, and think if they understand logically what the problem is, this will resolve. But that doesn't happen because your subconscious does not work logically. Another issue is that our most ingraining experiences happen between the ages 0 to 5. So often you cannot even consciously remember what happened. You don't even have a conscious memory of what the ISE, the initial sensitizing event, is. So in order to heal this and not get triggered again, not have more of these events building up on top of each other, you need to work with your subconscious. And I personally do that with hypnosis. This is the best way that I have found that I help my clients with, and that works, well, best from my own personal experience. Functionally, what you do when you use hypnosis, when you work with the subconscious, you basically ask the subconscious, hey, focusing on this negative feeling, focusing on this trigger, bring me back to the very first scene, situation, to the root cause where this started. And your subconscious always knows. I have an ambulance passing, so I'll just wait. I'll need to make a cut here, then I'll start again. Alright, I think it's gone now. So your subconscious always knows where the issue is. Because if your subconscious wouldn't know, it wouldn't be an issue. Think about it. Being afraid of public speaking or chasing for love and approval, you only do that. This is only your response, your automatic response, because of this. And your subconscious knows that. You just consciously are often not aware of that. So when we work with the subconscious, we ask the subconscious, bring us back to here, and your subconscious brings us to this exact situation. Literally, you see this recorded situation, we go basically inside this box and we see this memory playing again. There's the ambulance again. Anyway, we see this memory playing again. So you might see yourself, let me actually take an example from a real client. And this is very simple, and I take this because it shows you that, especially as a child, many things can be overwhelming very fast. I had a client and she was alone in her room sleeping, and then she woke up and started crying and screaming for her mother. And her mother didn't came in time. She came a little later, but not in time. So she screamed and she's cried, and her mother didn't came. So she had a lot of fear inside of her, because she thought, oh God, where's my mother? Am I all alone? Will I going to be abandoned? Am I alone now? Am I going to quote unquote die here? Is this it? Because her mother quote unquote took so long to come. And this ingrained very deeply in her subconscious. Now her mother obviously came eventually, but because for her at this moment it was so long, it was emotionally overwhelming and ingrained very deeply. And this caused her to chase for love and approval. This was the initial root cause. Of course, there were other moments and experiences in childhood after this first happened, but this was the ISE. Now, this is different for everybody. I'm not saying just because your mother didn't came in time once, you now develop trauma or triggers. But it might be that way, but it doesn't have to. Always individually different. So again, what we do now, we look at this event subconsciously during hypnosis, and we just allow and feel all the connected emotions, all the anxiety, the pain, the sadness, the fear of death. You feel that, because now it's not emotionally overwhelming anymore, because you've grown. You're an adult now. You have a better understanding and experience of what the world is. So it's not emotionally overwhelming anymore. The emotions may still be very strong, but in order to let emotions go, you always need to feel them and allow them. So you watch this memory, you allow all the emotions, and then what we do is we rewind that memory back to the beginning and we watch it another time and another time and another time, again and again and again, and you just allow any and all feelings until they are gone completely. And when they are gone completely and you're neutral to the memory, the emotions are basically cleared. The emotions are gone, they are at a zero, you're neutral, it's not painful for you anymore. The next thing we do is we go back a few moments before that memory had a chance to ever happen, and then you, as your adult self, step into the picture and you re-educate your subconscious. Now, again, this is not logic, because your subconscious works with emotions and pictures. So when you step in your adult self, obviously, you just do that in your mind. But this is a good mechanism to reprogram this safety lesson. And then you just tell your younger self everything that your younger self needs to deal with the situation in a better way, to know that you will be safe and that you can let go of all this pain now. And like this, we also re-educate the safety lesson and we clear the ISE. What now often happens functionally is that all of these other memories or triggers clear as well naturally. Not always. So what we do when we would do hypnosis, or when you do hypnosis with someone who is skilled, you jump to the next scene, memory that has everything to do with it, and you repeat the same process until there's nothing anymore, until your subconscious doesn't bring up anything anymore. Often it clears itself. If it doesn't, you jump to the memories and clear them one by one. And this is how you heal triggers, trauma, emotional pain sustainably. You don't focus on this. You don't focus on your current behavior, because if you just try to change your behavior or you try to logically understand it, you still have the ISE inside of you, the initial sensitizing event, and it will not sustainably help you. And this can come up again and again and again. You see this, for example, with people who have gone through toxic relationships, maybe multiple times, and then they say, okay, this is it, relationships are not for me. Or maybe even human contacts are nothing for me, and they self-isolate completely because they only focus on changing their behavior. It doesn't working. They keep finding themselves in toxic relationships, so they just give it up completely, self-isolate, and never work on this. Because if they would work on this, they would sustainably heal and would not find themselves in toxic relationships again, or whatever your trigger is. Alright, I hope that makes sense and was valuable for you. Now, hypnosis is something you cannot really do on your own. But if you want to start working with your subconscious by yourself and start resolving triggers, click the link in the description and there you can get my free subconscious mini course, where you can start working with a few techniques. Or if you want to work with a subconscious technique immediately, just check out the video right over there, and there we directly jump into a subconscious healing technique.